things you need to know about marketing this week. My name is Roger Gallegos. I'm the founder and CEO of Beacon Marketing. This week I want to talk about how to prevent lost leads. Before we get to that topic though, I want to first define what a lost lead is, and second, a couple reasons on why a lead may become lost. So a lost lead, for me specifically, is when someone shows a level of interest in your product or services. So maybe they download an ebook or some form of checklist or lead generating item that you put out there for consumption. So they download that, they show a level of interest, or maybe they contacted you directly and said, hey, I'm interested in product X or service A, whatever it may be. So you put them in a category. Some say it's a hot lead, some say it's a qualified lead. However your system may be, they put them in there. Now, once they get there, you start processing that lead, and somewhere along the way, they get lost. You lose that lead. They don't make a purchase. So to me, that is a lost lead. That is someone who showed a level of interest, and along the way, for whatever reason, they don't make a purchase. Now, I wrote a blog this week about how you can recover a lost lead. So please check that out, because that's very important, because those lost leads can end up generating revenue. That's happened to me. I've had several leads that at one point they weren't ready to buy when I first spoke to them, but I kept in contact with them, and then they came back sometimes even 2-3 years later and made a purchase. So it does happen. Now, a couple reasons a lead may become lost. First, and it's a simple one, maybe they just weren't ready at that time, and that's okay, but you do want to flag them and say, hey, let's touch base later. But other ways that are, to me, less acceptable is maybe you don't have a system to adequately process your leads. Now, this is where I see the biggest problem with people starting to promote their business. They have this idea, they start putting things out there, they start collecting leads, but then, oops, where do those leads go? So let's go back to the example of someone downloads your ebook. When you put out an ebook and someone downloads that, you have got their contact information. That is the whole point of putting out free content in that manner, is the price that you're charging, quote unquote, is their email address. You want to be able to get their email address so you can continue reaching out to that person specifically. What I've seen a lot of people do is they put out the ebook, but they don't have an adequate system to process that lead, meaning collect that email and set up a series of a drip campaign and then put them on your normal newsletter. They don't do that. So they do the work of getting that ebook out there, and they collect email addresses, with those email addresses to stay in a CRM somewhere and nothing happens to them. So that lead essentially becomes lost because they showed an interest in you and you lose it. So that is one of the most egregious ways. We're going to cover that here, go more detail in a sec. Another reason a lead may become lost is you just don't follow up in time, or you maybe even follow up too much, and a lead become kind of turned off in the process. So things like that is how you lose a lead. Now, let's look at how we can prevent you losing some leads. So first step is detail your customer journey. Now, I've talked about this before in previous videos, but your customer journey is what I envision the path of a customer taking you from discovering who you are all the way to making a purchase, because you really want to identify the key points along that way, because it helps you understand what forms of content you need to create, where the choke points may be, how they're going to discover your product, how they become interested. All this process is along the way. So once you identify that, once you map out that process, you have a better idea where little hiccups may happen. So first and foremost, outline your customer journey. Detail where they're going to discover your process and where they're going to buy and how everything fits together, because that'll give you a good idea of what you need to do and where. Second is create a system to process leads. This is what I was talking about at the beginning of the video, is you want to make sure you understand what happens to a person once they sign up for your email newsletter, once they sign up for an ebook, or maybe a checklist or some formal guide that you put out, or maybe it's even an event that you put on, that you host, or seminars that you put on. You're doing this information to collect leads, to get people to create awareness, which is at top of that funnel. That's where you're collecting those leads. So as you collect those leads, you want to create a system to process them so they become aware of your product and your service. You educate them on how you can make their life better, and then you close that lead. You want to detail how that process goes. If you don't do that, there's going to be a lot of places where leads fall out. And then so you do all that work to create awareness, and then you end up losing the lead because you didn't have something set up. The next, and I've touched on this a bit, is identify where a lead may become lost. So, and it's usually those choke points. It's the transfer from, getting on the list to someplace else, or maybe even, what happens like if they download an ebook and you have a 5 to 8 to 10 email drip campaign set up. What happens after that drip campaign? What are you going to do to make sure you continually reach out to that person and talk to them and engage with them on your product and your services to keep them engaged in you, so they don't forget about you, so you stay on their radar, because they may not be interested in your product or services at that time, but you still want to be there for when they are ready for your services. So that is how you really truly prevent the lost leads in the long term, is staying in front of them. And the best way to do it is identify where they may become lost. And it may be just a simple thing is, hey, once they get done with that drip campaign, they're on our email list, so they'll continue to get information. And our best way to do is just make sure we put out quality content on a regular basis, that we make sure that they follow us on social media, and that they're stay subscribe to our newsletter by putting out good content that applies to what their life and what they're experiencing. And so eventually they'll be ready for our services, and we'll be there to provide those services. So maybe that's all you could do. Fourth, and this really applies if your process is online for buying, but if you have your process online for them to make a purchase, make it as simple as possible. If you do e-commerce and you have a shopping cart, make sure the process is easy for them. It's simple. Some people just don't have a lot of time. They do not want to mess around with a convoluted or complicated process to check out. If they have to jump through a bunch of loops, they're just going to sit there and say, I'm done, I don't want to do this, and they're going to leave. So if you have a checkout process online, whether it's with a shopping cart, or if it's just a simple like, hey, buy this one thing or sign up for this one thing, make sure that process is as easy and fluid as possible so they can do it and go on with their day without a second thought. Because this is another place where you'd want to identify a potential for a lost lead and see what happens if they have an abandoned cart, and make sure that you follow up and say, hey, did you know you still have stuff in your cart? Do you want to make this purchase? So that type of stuff that will help you prevent the lost lead for an e-commerce site. But you just want to make sure that checkout process is smooth, and you have a way to touch up with people who may have abandoned a cart. The last thing you want to do, this could be the most important one of them all, is communicate with your team. Make sure everyone understands the process, understands that customer journey, what the system is to process a lead, where you want the customers to go after they become aware of your product, where the choke points are, or points where they may fall out of the funnel, how you're going to be able to recover those lost leads. Because lost leads, I'm going to say here, these are how you prevent lost leads, but you're not going to prevent all leads from being lost, but you want to do your best to prevent as many as possible. So, communicate with your team, make sure they understand what happens when a client comes in, how they're processed, and any questions. So, if a client calls with a question, or if a customer asks for something, they get their questions answered, so they feel confident, so they could go forward and make their purchase. Because if they're not confident, they're probably not going to make that purchase. So, communication is really key here. So, quick recap on the 5 things you could do to prevent lost leads: detail customer journey, create a system to process leads, identify where leads may become lost, simplify what your customer has to do to buy if your process is buying online, and communicate with your team so everybody knows how everything works together. So that's it for me today. As always, please like, share, follow, comment. Let me know what you think of this process. Let me know, if you've encountered a lot of lost leads and you're like, I didn't even know I had these people in my system, or I didn't know how to reach out to them. Let me know if you've dealt with that, if you've been able to fix that. Like I said, I wrote a blog on what you could do to recover those lost leads. So let's say you uh, have some lost leads and you're like, I don't know how to reach out to them. I don't know how to get them back into a funnel. I write about that. So so check out that. I'll put the link in the description below. As always, I do offer a free 30-minute discovery show. So this helps you understand where you are with your marketing efforts right now and how you can get better and move forward with your efforts so you become a truly effective and efficient marketer for yourself and your business. And so the one catch with that is I offer 10 free. It's a $97 value. You get 10. There's 10 free. So if you're one of those first 10 in the month, you get it for free. After that, I charge. So please sign up for that. The link to schedule an appointment for that is it will be in the description below. The last thing is I send out a weekly newsletter every Monday afternoon, and it just has some good stuff for marketing. So you get a kind of just some information I feel you could use each week to become a better marketer. And I don't send spam out. To me, it's really good information. So let me know what you think about that. Sign up for that. Let me know if you have any questions about that. Again, this is Roger Gallegos, founder, CEO of Beacon Marketing. This has been Beacon Marketing's Weekly 5 things you need to know about marketing. I look forward to seeing you next week with next week's Weekly 5. You have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week. Talk to you later. Bye.